So within the vast discussion of applying weight-bearing loads to our body in order to prevent or even possibly reverse bone loss and muscle mass diminishment, the best place to start is just with our own body weight, for us to be able to just even navigate carrying our bodies around in the right configurations is going to help to load our bones and our muscles in the right way. The problem is that we often outsource a lot of the use of our body weights to other things, chairs and whatnot, but also just in our stacking of our body parts on top of each other. And a little tweak, as I'm going to show you, can be incredibly beneficial as a place to start to maximize the compression loads of our own tissues, our own body parts onto the parts that we are trying to bolster up. In this case, particularly the hip joints, all right? So we're probably all aware that the hip joints are very vulnerable as we get older for bone loss and fractures and whatnot. And what we're talking about here, if you're not familiar with the specific parts, we have this big, robust bone in the thigh, the femur, and at the top of the femur, and you've probably seen pictures of it, you have this little knob, and then you have a neck, and then you have another knob, and that's the part that you generally can feel as you stick your hip out side to side, right? And this is the part, the knobs and the neck, that are vulnerable to bone density diminishment, largely because we are not often standing or moving in movements and activities that are going to keep signaling to that area to produce more bone tissue. We bypass a lot of it. So even if we're standing, and depending on how we're standing, we could be missing really nourishing, sending nourishing mechanical input to that structure that's telling it to produce more bone cells. That might be an oversimplification, but in general, that's how that works. So we're going to look at a simple tweak you can make to your standing posture that's going to help better load your hip joints. All right, so again, just thinking in terms of like simple geometry and just stacking one thing on top of the other, right? The more evenly things are stacked, the more compression there's going to be within the perpendicular field of gravity. And what do I mean by that is that gravity always moves directly toward the center of the earth. It doesn't come in at angles, it doesn't deviate, it's always perpendicular to the earth. So that's kind of helpful to know. So we want our body parts to be within that perpendicular line as well, as much as they can be. All right, so just starting with, if you're standing, hopefully you are standing, you can do this with me. And ideally too, you don't have shoes on because you'll be able to better feel where your weight is landing on the soles of your feet. All right, so if you want to shift your weight a little bit, toes to heels, side to side, just so you start to get that sensation in your feet of where is the pressure of your body pushing in. Where is your default stance? If you just stand how you naturally stand, is your weight more over your toes, over the forefoot? Is it more in the heels? Are your feet rolled in? Do you stand more with one foot, one foot more than the other carrying the weight and a hip stuck out to the side, or vice versa? So there's a lot of variations just even in the standing position of where our weight can fall just through our feet, right? All right. So restorative alignment 101 is just what we call, backing up the hips, right? So if your tendency, and a lot of our tendencies is to do this, is to stand with our weight more in front of the center line. And maybe we do this by arching the back a little, letting the pelvis kind of fall open, or any number of ways, but it often will mean that all of this, the center of your mass is not coming down through the center of your legs, but it's kind of more in front of you, right? So the first thing we want to do is just back the pelvis up. So just shifting your pelvis, your butt, your lower body back, so you're feeling that pressure more through your heels and through the midfoot. All right, and already this can feel maybe a little destabilizing. You know, a lot of us have lifetime habits of stepping out in front, clenching the quadriceps, bending the knees, keeping everything a little bit forward, and the toes getting the bulk of the pressure. So we're not used to utilizing these very large back end muscles, no jokes here, all right? But these are the largest, strongest muscles in our body, and they can be very underused and not used to having your weight be supported through the back of your body. And it might feel like you're falling backwards, in which case, if this is prohibitive for you, hold on to something, but practice shifting your weight from the front of your foot to the back. Right? And unbending the knees if you can. That brings up a whole nother topic, that sometimes we have such chronic knee bending going on that they won't unbend. But to the degree that you can, in a relaxed way, straighten your legs, unbend the knees, and have your weight more over your heels. That's step one. Okay. So already we are better loading. We're maximizing our upper body weight, whatever it may be, to help give more compressive loads and more active work to do through the hips, and not so much through the quadriceps and the knees and the front of the foot. That's where we want the active work to be. Okay. All right, now another tool you can use, and this can be very helpful as you're practicing this, and I hope this is just a simple practice that you will do as often as possible, but it can help to look in a mirror just to see how your body parts are stacking up. And a useful tool can be a plumb line. Now this is one that my husband designed for me. That's maybe a little bit overkill. You don't need a 20-pound weight at the bottom of your line here, but something that's heavy enough to pull the string nice and straight and taut, because this will tell you where the center line of the force of gravity is. Okay, and so we're going to line up this plumb line beginning with the center of our hip joint. So if you need to wiggle to the side to feel where that protrusion is, that's where we're going to start the line. And it's just going to follow the seam of your pants on the outside. Okay, so at the top we have, I need to stand square to the camera. At the top we have the hip joint. At the bottom we have the ankle. So your ankles are directly, try to keep it from swinging here, the ankles are directly beneath the hip joint. Okay, so here's thrust forward. You can see the different configurations maybe we have when we stand. So we want that center of your hips over the center of the ankle. And now with the knees, got a lot of extra string here too. There we go. If you can see, we want the center of the knee also with passing through this line. So if your knees tend to bend, they're going to be out in front of the string, right? If you have hyperextended knees, which some people do, that means that the center is going to be, and I can't do it because I don't have hyperextension in my knees, but your knee will be behind the string. But we want, so here's the back of my knee, here's the front of the knee, we want that line right through the center. Okay, and now you can see just geometrically, hips over the knees, over the foot in a way that is bearing down on the center of the bones, through the center of the hip joint, in a way that is going to help maximize and support the mechanical input signals for the bones to stay, regenerating and staying strong, in addition to the muscles, and getting used to using our back end muscles to stabilize the hip and to support our balance on the back end. Okay, I hope that made sense. It's a simple thing, but there's a lot of words involved there. If you have any questions, please ask, and please play with this. So let me try on the other side here too, because legs can vary from one to the other here. So hip joint, knee, ankle. All right, Very good. Have fun with that. Explore. And again, reach out if you have any questions. Thank you for watching.